السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. الحمد لله والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفاه ونستنصر الله ونستغفر الله ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله الأحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله إمام الأنبياء والمرسلين أرسله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. اللهم صل وبارك وسلم على سيدنا محمد وآل سيدنا محمد وأصحاب سيدنا محمد. ثم أما بعد. We begin praising and thanking Allah Azza wa Jal, the Lord of the worlds. And we praise Allah Azza wa Jal, He who created the heavens and the earth and made the various stages of darkness and the lighting. Then those who make equals with their Lord most certainly have disbelieved. And the praise and thanks belongs to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may His peace be upon His righteous servants whom He has chosen. We bear witness there's nothing worthy of worship except for Allah, He who is unique, absolute and eternal, who gave birth to none, nor was He given birth to, meaning that Allah was never a man, nor did He ever have babies or children, and there's nothing like Him. And we bear witness to our leader, Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, is Allah's slave servant and messenger, the leader of all prophets and messengers, who was sent with the guidance and the deen of truth, that it may be apparent and visible, known to be the deen with Allah over all other ways, lifestyles. Although most disbelievers, those who associate partners with Allah, may dislike it and what follows. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we would like to briefly talk about, in regards to justice and peace in society, the obligation for Muslims to establish the just life, no matter what society we are in, and for all times, be it in a non-Muslim land or in a Muslim land. First of all, let me start with saying or proposing to you that Allah Azza wa Jal created in the human being a natural propensity towards seeking and desiring justice. Whether one disbelieves or believes in Allah, from the very primordial nature of man, from the very base essence of man and man's creation, man has a desire for justice and to seek justice. And when there is a lack of justice, there is a lack of peace. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, فِطْرَةُ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَتَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا, that the nature that Allah Azza wa Jal, that He patterned the entire universe upon, that man, that human beings have also been patterned upon this same nature and upon this same order. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam explains this even further when he says, Kullu ma'ludin yuladul ala al-fitra. This is the first part of the prophetic tradition, where he says that every child is born upon this natural, primordial, good nature. And the rest of the hadith says, but it is their parents who make them Jewish, Christian, or what is called Majus, or in modern times we call this Zoroastrian religion. We call this Zoroastrianism, the Majus. And this religion is still practiced, by the way, by people in the Yazd province, modern-day Iran, and there are a few people practicing this religion to this day in the modern state of India. There are still people who are mentioned in the Quran going back 1400 years ago who are called Majus. So in the nature, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human being with this excellent nature upon an excellent pattern, and this excellent nature was created to be submissive to the Almighty. It is submissive into the divine order, into the divine balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the entire creation. As we read in one of the ayah earlier when I opened up. Alhamdulillah alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal-arda wa ja'ala dhulumati wan-nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything within the heavens and the earth, and He made the various stages of darkness and the lighting, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His creation gave it order, gave it balance, and it is duly proportioned. This is actually one of the names of Allah Azza wa Jal, of His Asma al-Husna. He is known as the Creator, He is known as the Originator, He is also known as Al-Adl, meaning the just. And if we were to look at something or a symbol of justice, if I can give you an example with human beings and our actions, if you've ever seen someone at a circus and they walk a very fine rope, I think it's called a tightrope, and they take a pole, and the pole is equal, and they hold it in the middle so that there's equality, and this pole is what makes them keep the balance. This is a symbol of equality, or a symbol of being duly proportioned. Because if the person holds the pole on one side more than the other, or places too much of their leverage on one side to the right more than the left, for example, they'll fall off that very fine tightrope. They'll fall off. This even is a symbol that goes back in ancient times. By the way, you know, Christians, our brother, Jazakallahu Khairan, he was talking about the Christian faith. The Christians have a symbol. They don't even know where, many of them, unfortunately, don't even know where their symbols come from. They have a symbol today called crucifix, where they believe that Isa alayhi salatu wasalam was crucified on something that is a symbol. This symbol actually is something that was taken or predates something in Egyptian mythology. They have something called the Ankh. They call it the key of life. It looks just like a crucifix, except it has like a head. It has like an open hole like a key. It has like a head. And the cross looks just like this symbol. And by the way, in ancient Egyptian myth, they have a similar story with Osiris and Isis and Horus. And supposedly Horus was the son of Osiris, who was to be a similar type of sacrifice, just like the Christian believe in Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. This symbol in of itself, in its original meaning, though they've lost it, and the original symbol of Christianity, by the way, wasn't even a crucifix, it was a fish. Because they have a story that says that Peter, which was one of the disciples, was a fisherman, and according to the Christian tradition, Al-Masih alayhi salam told Peter to stop fishing for fish, and it's time for us to fish for men. Anyway, in the original meaning of this symbol, before it meant to be a symbol of execution, it actually is a symbol, or looks like the human being in a position of balance. The original symbol, or a meaning that could be taken from the crucifix before it was taken into a symbol of crucifixion. Anyway, going back to the original point, human beings, and just like the rest of Allah's creation, have been created with balance. We have been created with balance and duly proportioned. And in our nature, we seek balance and we seek justice. Now, in regards to the duty of the Muslim, in any society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses this community. And that there's three traits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about this community, if we are following the Quran and Sunnah properly, makes us the best nation of all nations, not just in creed, but also in practice. See, it's very easy for us to say that we believe something, but it's another thing to put it in action. Many of our Christian brothers have the false belief, they say they can just believe something in their heart, or say they're saved and they believe something, but none of their actions have to mirror this so-called belief that they're saved. So say you're saved, do whatever you want to do, and it's fine, and you can go to the heaven or to the paradise. This is not the Islamic belief. As a matter of fact, before we get to this ayah, we have to mention this, that it was the opinion of Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah. It was his belief that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have revealed only this one surah, and the human beings would follow and implement this one surah, this would be enough for mankind. And this surah is Surah Al-Asr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Stop right there. Belief and action. Those who believe and they demonstrate the belief. Just not saying they believe but don't do anything. It's belief and action. So these three criterion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what makes us the best community. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You are the best community, the best nation evolved for mankind. O Muslims, if you do three things. Tahmunu bil ma'rufi wa tanhawna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. These are the three in the sequence. And the three in the sequence says, and you are the best of communities extracted for mankind because you enjoin al-mahruf, you forbid al-munkar. Al-mahruf is loosely translated as good. You forbid the bad, and you believe in Allah. Now let's stop here and talk about these terms and then discuss something about the sequence, because tu'minu billah was not mentioned in the first of the three. It was mentioned in the third of the three. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word mahruf. There's more than one word that means good, but this is word, he didn't use khair. He didn't use the word which means good or wholesome, which is tayyib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used al-mahruf. What is mahruf? Mahruf in Arabic is related to its root word, or comes from the root word arafa. Arafa. Like Jabal Arafat. When we go to make Hajj, comes from the same root, which means to know, and it means to recognize. And not just knowing or recognizing something, it is knowing or recognizing something empirically. Meaning being able to gauge something through the five senses in a recognition through empirical observation is mahruf. Some of the Muslims of the Shi'i schools of thought, and some of the brothers who are Ahl Tasawwuf, they have a belief of ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the sense that they believe of arafah of Allah. But this, to my understanding, from what I've been taught from my teacher, there is no arafah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can have ilm of Allah, we can come into the knowledge that Allah has given us through His creation, but we cannot have arafah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we cannot empirically observe Allah. We can only empirically observe His creation. This is a da'if, a hadith, for example, in Al-Ihya Ulumuddin, for example, that says, Man arrafa nafsahu faqad arrafa rabbahu. For example, whoever knows themselves most certainly has known their Lord. This is not an authentic hadith. There's no legitimate sanad for this hadith. So, al-mahruf, that which is known to be excellent, is also what is something called a passive participle in the Arabic language. Like the word maf'ul, mahruf. So it is something that is known. It is something that is known. And it is something that is observed. And this word in its root is used in other forms in the Quran. For example, in one of the oft-recited verses of the Quran, in the 49th surah, in the 13th ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts off with a vocative trying to get our attention. All human beings. Not just addressing the believers, but addressing all human beings. Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ilan lita'arafu. Lita'arafu. Ta'arafu, mutual recognition, is related to the word in its root to mahruf. And there are certain universal standards amongst human beings that are recognized throughout societies of man, in various societies of man. And then within particular societies, there are certain things that are known to be good or excellent commonly within individual societies. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, خُذْ بِالْعَفْوِ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. For instance, where the word urf is used as also translated as being good, but it is different in its form from mahruf, and also in common Arabic language, when we normally use the term urf, or if we read it in the books of fiqh, like of Imam Malik, for example, we will see that urf is also translated or used as custom. It's also used as a term of custom. Some may even say culture, but custom. So there is things that are widely known amongst the human beings in society. There are universal virtues of goodness, wholesomeness, and justice that Muslims should seek to implement in any society. And that these things are recognized by other human beings to be excellent. Deep down, even if the society has gone off of the deep end or have deviated in certain things, there are still people people in societies who are, even if they aren't on Deen al-Islam, have not totally strayed from their fitrah, where they understand certain things are right or certain things are wrong, and that certain things are just and certain things are unjust. I'll give you an example. If we were to go to the area of Tibet, for example, we know that people in Tibet practice Buddhism. I've studied and taken comparative religion classes before in university. And what I learned in comparative religion in regards to Buddhists is that in the Buddhist religion, they don't have a concept or a word for a divine supreme being. They don't have this. Actually, Buddhism is more of a philosophy than a religion. So, but if you were to go to some of the followers of the Dalai Lama, for example, go to Tibet, and if you were to go to them and ask them a question, what do you think about a person who takes care or feeds poor people or helps poor people out, or helps take away injustice that stops poor people from being able to work for themselves? Even though these people don't have a concept of a tawheed, even if they don't know one word of Arabic, if they did know the word mahruf in Arabic, they would say this is a good thing, or this is mahruf. They would recognize this as being a good, admirable trait of bringing about goodness and justice in society, even if they aren't upon Deen al-Islam. They'd be able to recognize this. Similarly, if you look at this, the structure of this ayah, we can easily see that al-munkar is diametrically opposed to ma'ruf. If we are promoting ma'ruf and we are forbidding munkar, then obviously munkar is diametrically opposed to ma'ruf. Munkar is the opposite of ma'ruf. Munkar, loosely translated as being despicable. If ma'ruf is excellence and bringing about excellence and goodness and justice in society, then munkar is that which spreads or brings despicable behavior, antisocial behavior, and opens up the door to injustice in society. If ma'ruf is promoting goodness and promoting justice, then munkar is the opposite, promoting the unwholesomeness, the dirt, the filth, and the injustice. Hence, we could give you another example. Let's say we go down to South America. Let's use Venezuela, for example. Majority Catholic country. They're not on Deen al-Islam. If you were to go to a country like Venezuela, and the majority of people are Catholic there, and if you were to go amongst the society or go to the people who've held on to a lot of the traditional values and ask them what they think about homosexual marriage, if they could articulate it in Arabic, they probably would say it's munkar. They would say that homosexual marriage is munkar because it is antisocial and it causes a lot of problems in society. If you were to go to even a communist in Cuba and ask them, is a person being arrested and detained without proper charges, without going in front of a court, not being able to get their due in court, is this just or unjust? Is this ma'ruf or is this munkar? And the communist, perhaps who believes in no God, would say that's not right, that's not just, that's antisocial, this is munkar. So these are things that are known. These are things that are recognized amongst the family of man. And then there are particular things within societies. So there's a broad application or a broad institution of certain things or certain justice that needs to be cultivated universally. And then each society has its own individual issues of justice that needs to be promoted that perhaps may be lacking, or particular situations of injustice that may be going on in one society that perhaps could be void or not much of a problem in another society. This is so important, by the way, that one of the Khulafa Rashidin, who was martyred, we know that 3 of the 4 Khulafa Rashidin were martyred. Umar ibn al-Khattab was martyred by a Majusi. Uthman ibn Affan was martyred by some of the Khawarij, And so was the 4th of the rightly guided successors. Ali ibn Abi Talib was also martyred by some of those who broke away from the Jama'ah and sought to be what we can say vigilantes. When he was stabbed, when he was martyred, well, first he was stabbed by leading the Salatul Subh, the Salatul Fajr, in the masjid in Kufa at the prayer time by Ibn Muljam when he was shanked and then he died a few days later. While he was on his deathbed, it is narrated in the Tabari and some of the other sources that he said to his son, Al-Hussein ibn Ali, radiallahu anhu, one of the things he said to him that he stressed was, لا تترك الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. He said this on his deathbed. One of the things he wanted to stress to Al-Hussein ibn Ali, his son, along with his son Al-Hassan was there, but he said it. He says, and never leave. Don't leave in joining what is the mahruf, the good and the justice in society, and never leave the stopping and the prohibiting of al-munkar. Now, I would like to mention some some things in the Quran before we continue, but still related in regards to the application of justice in the society. And how it's not just limited to the Muslim lands. See, some Muslims are under the false understanding that, yeah, we're supposed to just go and just focus all of our time about making things just back in the Muslim world. But those who, we work over here and we live in a non-Muslim country, and maybe we should just, get our share of this dunya, get a little money, and, send our kids to the masjid, and we shouldn't worry about what's going on in the society around us. Some Muslims have this belief. I would like to read some things from Surah Ibrahim as a parable or as a similitude that Allah Azza wa Jal strikes to us or gives to us, sets forth to us as a hint or as an indication for us that our lives and our work towards cultivating the mahruf and the justice in society are not just limited to the Muslim land, but to wherever we are at. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَلَمْ تَرَى كَيْفَ يَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَاتٍ طَيِّبَةٍ كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. I will stop at this one ayah before I continue with the next two. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks what's called a rhetorical question. Of course, we're not going to answer it back. He's asking us a question for us to ponder something, to think. Have you not seen how Allah strikes an example of a good word that's like a good tree whose roots are firmly planted, firmly established, and branch reaches up to the sky, or it could be to the heaven. وَتُؤْتِي أُكُلَّهَا كُلَّ حِينَ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا وَيَضْرِبُهُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. And that He gives from it fruits that can be eaten at every time with permission of the Lord. And this is how Allah strikes examples to human beings in order that they may think and contemplate very deeply over and over and over again the similitude given to us. Now we should think, if Allah Azza wa Jal is striking an example for us of a good word, it's like a good tree. What is this word and what is this tree? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, it is said in some ahadith and some of the tafsir of Quran, and of the opinion of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, two of the preeminent companions who were the interpreters of the Quran. They said that this good tree, this tree that is tayyibah, this good tree, they said, hiya nakhla, hiya nakhla. And nakhla in Arabic means date palm tree. Means date palm tree. Now, let us think about how this, and let us not think about our modern day life, modern psyche, because now we have so many conveniences. MashaAllah, we're sitting in this air-conditioned musalla with fans going around, and we have the bottled water. We don't have to go a long way to a well. We have cars. We're not riding on camels. We have all the niceties of life. We can get in contact with people very easily with the cell phone. Let's think about how this was for Muhajirun and Ansar 1,400 years ago. How when they heard this and how they could have understood this. What does a date palm tree represent at those times? Date palm tree is out in the middle of a desert area, or it's in an area of which it can grow, where many other things cannot grow because of the harsh circumstances. For a matter of fact, for example, in a desert area, it's 100, 130, 135 degrees Celsius. For example, you're not going to get a cherry tree to grow in that type of climate. You're not going to have some other type of plant life that's going to be able to grow in those harsh conditions. But a nakhla can grow in those areas where there's harsh conditions. A date palm tree grows in the area and there's other trees around it. Sometimes people call it an oasis. It represents life surrounded by an area that lacks life. And its palm leaves can provide shade in an area where there is no shade. Because when you're in the middle of a desert, if you're not carrying your tents or anything with you, it's going to be hot out there. Nothing to block you from the sun. And date palm trees can produce fruit in an area that can sustain life when there may be nothing else to eat, which dates was a very main staple of food for the Bedouin Arab back at that time. So it represents a sign of life, of hope, of establishment. If you study a date palm tree, you'll see that the seed, when the seed is planted in the ground, as the trunk begins to go up and grows, the roots are also growing simultaneously, going down as the trunk goes up, and the roots are very deep because the water table in the desert is not high up close to the surface, it's down, really down low. So the Muslim man, the Muslim female, and the Muslim ummah, in any society it is supposed to be just like how the date palm tree is in the desert for the Bedouin Arab. This is how it's supposed to be. And in an area, backtracking in an area that perhaps can be arid or be desert area. So we Muslims, no matter where we are at, even if it's a difficult situation, even if it's a situation where it's a non-Islamic environment, the seed of our iman, if it is sincere and we are seeking to implement our deen, is supposed to go down into the earth and establish itself and grow up, and it should be a sign for people. And when people recognize people of truth, honesty, and justice, the Muslims are supposed to be the first people that come to mind if we are instituting our deen, as we're supposed to. The Muslims aren't supposed to be looked at as people to be feared, or people where people aren't feeling safe around. When people think of Muslim, they should think of people of ethics and of peace. This is something for us that we need to think about, that we need to work on as a community, bi'idhnillah. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, we mention the word mahruf, bringing about goodness, excellence in societies regarding a social context, and arf, al-arf, bringing about this good within a particular situation, a particular society. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose names are also, we mentioned his one name, Al-Adl, he also has the name of Al-Muqsit. He's the one who brings about and institutes justice. Gives us an ayah of Quran, we'll read a portion of it, and then another ayah, a portion that's similar in Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kunu qawwamina bil qisti shuhada'a lillahi walau ala anfusikum awil walidaini wal aqrabin. Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Oh, those of you who believe." Now, he's not addressing all of mankind. He's addressing believers. He's addressing believers in something that perhaps people who aren't believers may not be able to fully institute. So he's giving a specific address to the believers. And we know that Allah Azza wa Jal answers or calls upon different people, different groups in the Quran, different ways. Ya ayyuhan nas, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O people, O believers. O disbelievers, the kafirun, ya ahlul kitab. Some ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions people. And Allah also addresses or talks to those people who are hypocrites. So we are given, all those of you who believe, be of those, kunu, be of those who are qawwamin, which is related to the word, which means to stand up or to establish, like iqamah. We're talking about iqamatul deen. This is related to the word. The type of people are type of people who stand up, or like we say, qad qamatis salat, to stand up. Not just to sit back, but to stand up, to establish, to take a stand. Be of those people who are institutors, who stand up, bil qist, for justice, or we can say with justice. Witnesses for Allah, even if it's against your own selves, or your two parents and your close loved ones. It's a very difficult thing for human beings to do. Actually, when the word lao is used in the Quran, it's a hypothetical. This if is what is called, it's a particle, it's hypothetical. Because in most cases and most times, it's very hard for the human being, even for the person who believes, to be able to do this. Only very special people are able to institute this in its entirety, such as prophets of Allah. Like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam stated, and I'm paraphrasing the hadith, but in regards to the had, in regards to taking possessions and taking wealth that is not due to one, he said that even if Fatima bint Muhammad were to commit this type of crime, that he would even execute the justice on her in regarding to the had for those who steal the wealth. But how many of us in our hearts and minds, if our daughter, the one who is so beautiful we saw come out the womb, we were right there when our daughter was born. I have a 2-year-old daughter. Daughter born, looking so precious and sweet, and you take so much time. And then she gets older and commits grand larceny over. How many of us would have the strength to be okay, or to not argue for her? Or will we be willing to see that had be implemented against our daughter? It's a very difficult thing, isn't it? Very difficult thing for us to stomach or to think about. But we are to be a people, the people of Iman, the people of belief. To be of those who seek to establish the justice, to stand up for the justice and be witnesses for God, even if it's against ourselves, or it could be translated as souls, and fusikum, even if it's against our own souls, our two parents, and close loved ones. This is something in regards to being just. We have our justice in our day-to-day dealings, when we can make our own day-to-day decisions. Even our day-to-day judging of when our parent, or let's say we have children. Sometimes our children come with us with disputes, right? Sometimes people in the community comes with us with disputes, and we have to judge in accordance with hearing both sides of the story and hearing whatever evidence is presented before we can give a fair ruling. But in regards to implementing justice in society, there has to be a mechanism and the authority to implement justice in a particular society regarding to the Islamic law. For example, we in America as Muslims, if we catch someone drinking alcohol amongst us in our community, because the Islamic law and the Sharia is not established here in a sense that we have the duty, if we don't have the means of enforcement that is recognized in the society, then we cannot implement the had according to the Sharia. According to fiqh, for example, we can't say we saw Brother Jamal stumbling into the masjid drunk and there was 4 brothers that see him, so then, we take him outside and we give him 40 lashes with a whip. We can't do that. We can't do that. Not in America. Now, if someone gets caught in Saudi and they get caught walking around, they're drunk, then the police will come and get them. They'll go in front of a judge. I mean, just random brothers can't go and take him out in the back and whip him. He has to go in front of a hakam or a qadi. And then once the evidence is heard, then the brother can get sentenced to the 40 lashes with the whip, for instance. In regards to the justice in conclusion, when we look at righteousness and piety in Islam, having taqwa for Allah, having the proper consciousness for our relationship with Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned something in the Quran twice in regards to what is the peak of it taqwa. It's mentioned in what's called a superlative form. In one reference is reference to pardoning, and specifically men pardoning their wives. Aqrabul taqwa. And in Surah Ma'idah, the 8th ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a command, plural. Udilu huwa aqrabul taqwa. Be just, institute justice, and this is what is most close to at-taqwa. So this aqrabul taqwa in the Quran is not referenced or not in conjunction or not referenced in regards to salah or paying zakah or fasting or making hajj, which is the basis of this belief, and then these other parts of the 5 pillars. It is related to pardoning and justice, institute justice, and this is what is most close to taqwa. So if we want to be of those who Allah Azza wa Jal says, Inna Allaha yuhibbul muttaqeen, that surely Allah loves those who are the people of taqwa, then one of the primary prerequisites of being of those who Allah loves, it must be that we are people that practice justice amongst ourselves and be of those who stand up, who have the iqama, or of establishing justice and mahruf in the lands in which we live in. Brothers and sisters in Islam. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين.